So here we are in November, traditionally stewardship season in most churches. It makes sense to have stewardship I guess. It is harvest season. So when most of our members were farmers, this was the time of year when they could kind of count on what they would be able to give to the church for the next year. Of course, lots of churches use stewardship season and budgeting season together because they wait to see what might be given to the church before they decide what they might spend next year. Although most experts in stewardship would say that that's backwards. Instead, what we should do is plan what God is calling us to do for the next year, and then go out and raise the money to meet that need. But today I want to talk to you about a book that I have mentioned to you before. It's this one, Not Your Parents' Offering Plate. The author is Cliff Christopher. I've heard him speak sometimes at stewardship events and studied this book and several of the others that he has written. I wanted to lift up three things for you today, as you may be just finishing up your stewardship season, or maybe you're in the middle of it or just getting started for this year. He talks in the book about reasons that people give. For instance, one of them is that people give when they have a belief in the mission of whatever it is to which they are giving money. This reminds me that we sometimes have church members who treat us in different ways. That is, treat the church in different ways. Some of them kind of think of us like the Salvation Army. That is, we do good things, and they think of themselves as our clients. Now, in general, the clients of the Salvation Army are not also the donors to the Salvation Army. And we all have church members who take full advantage of all of the things that our church offers, but never give any traceable income to the church. That's one kind of person that we have within our pews, and one of the ways they kind of treat us as a not-for-profit organization. That's what they think of us as in their minds. Then we have those members who treat us more like the zoo. That is, they are our patrons, and they are also our donors. Whether they give on a very small scale or whether they give on a grand scale, like some of those people whose names you see on the bricks at the zoo when you go to visit. Well, when we think that people give because they believe in the mission, we need to figure out how to interpret that mission to these different kinds of patrons, different kinds of members, different kinds of attendees that we have in our church. And that may be something for you to think about in your church. Now, a second reason that he says that people give is because they have regard for the staff leadership. That is, they trust the staff of a church. And so that may be something for you to think about. Do the church members in your church know your staff well enough to trust them? Do they know what your financial accounting procedures are so that they can trust them? Is your budgeting process and your financial process transparent enough so that they can have a high trusting level of the people who work at your church? And then a third reason he says that people give to something, especially to a church, is because there is fiscal stability. That is, they don't want to give to a sinking ship. Now, I still visit churches sometimes that have a little financial report in every single bulletin, and I see it in church newsletters. And sometimes that financial report is telling everyone who gets that information how far behind the church is in meeting its bills that year. That is not really a motivator for most people to give to something. They want to give to something they believe in, something they trust, where the people who are working there are trustworthy, and they want to give to something that has fiscal stability. So finding a way to interpret the reality, but not making it sound like a sinking ship, would be an important thing. Now, one last point that I've made with you in writing before and in person with many of you in the presbytery. Cliff Christopher, this expert in stewardship, just absolutely insists that ministers must know what their donors are giving. Ministers are expected to be among the fundraisers in their church. They're expected to be able to interpret what is happening in the church. They're expected to be able to help meet the budget in a church, just as the financial person at the Salvation Army or the zoo is expected to do. In both of those places, at the Salvation Army, at the zoo, they know exactly who their donors are and how much they give, and they know how to interact with people to encourage them to give more. When pastors don't have that information, they don't have the whole picture of the financial life of the church, and so their hands are tied as they go about helping their session to meet the needs of that church. Of course, all of this is to the end that we can live out the vision that God has for us. And so as you finish up your stewardship season this year, I hope that that vision for you is something so clear that your members can't help but give to the ministry of your church, so that you can continue to bring hope in the name of Jesus Christ.